This is On Diversity, a podcast series by the Institute of Policy Studies, Singapore. This is the third season, and I'm your host, Liang Kaixin, Associate Director of IPS and also a former journalist. Today's episode is on being biracial in Singapore. Today we have Parkash, who is of Indian Filipino descent, and many people will remember that he and his wife were confronted by a poly lecturer who made racist remarks. And then we have Shane Pereira. He's a research associate at IPS. He studies race and religion issues, and he's Eurasian and Chinese. Welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, I have to mention your race because today's episode is about being biracial. I'll get to Dave first because obviously you were in the news a lot last year, right?
Oh no. Okay.
The poly lecturer was like asking you to date within your own race, right? And then you're like, what do you mean by that, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Other than the obvious, like, this news incident, right? Do you have any other incident that you encounter when people kept asking about your race and which one do you identify with?
I mean, for me, personally, there has been instances, but it's not really like, too major or, But yeah, I'm quite comfortable with my race, I don't see anything wrong with being mixed. I think it's pretty cool. It's like, if, like, for example, you're Chinese, right? I'm not Chinese, but I don't see there's any differences. I can still sit down with you, have a meal with you, drink with you. End of the day, it's all about, love and light. So, yeah.
How about Shane? Do you get asked a lot about your heritage or your race?
Yes, I do. I think I've got one of those faces that, people always try to place. I've been mistaken as Malay, Filipino, Bangladeshi, strangely Japanese. I don't know how to describe that one because I grew my hair out and I was in the UK and I attended a Japanese wedding. So they all just thought I was a dark-skinned Japanese person, even though I can't speak a word. So they're always curious. Well, they just assume when they see me, they assume I'm Filipino or they assume I'm Malay, and that's fine. So sometimes I take the taxi and the guy asks me, or he doesn't ask me anything. He just says, it's great that your people can now go out and drink and enjoy a good time on the weekend. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, I know what he means. I just went, oh, yeah, okay. And I just don't want to carry on that conversation. And when people see my kids, they get confused because my kids are fair. One has actually light brown hair and light brown eyes. And that's what I looked like when I was younger as well. But you kind of grow out of it, climate and so on, right? So they all look at me and they look at them and they're confused. And they usually try to ask me in a non-direct way, like, where are you from? What about your wife? And so I've kind of conditioned to just say, well, my wife is Chinese. And then they go, oh, no wonder your kids are so good looking.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I encounter that quite a lot, almost on a daily basis.
Okay. So do you get irritated when you get asked a lot about this? Dave?
Do I get irritated? I mean, not really. I mean, probably at the start, a couple of years ago, probably. But now it's just like, okay, I think this couple of days ago, so I was walking out with my mom. So my mom's, she's pretty fair because she's Filipino, right? And someone asked me, oh, is that your friend? And then, so I just, I like to play along. Like, hey, yeah, that's my friend. But then, I had to tell this client that, oh, no, she's actually my mom. And then they were shocked. They're like, really?
Maybe your mom looks very young.
Could be. Yeah, I'm going to take that with compliment. And then I think, who was it? Just recently, I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago, someone asked me, no, Dave, what is your real Indian name? And I was like, well, I don't have one. My name is Dave. My sister name is Farah. So we don't really have the most Indian names. So it's things like that. It doesn't really get on my skin. I'm not really irritated. It's just, it's okay. I'm happy to sort of clarify. So it's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I often wonder whether or not it's something we develop, like to see things or more things racially. I was thinking about when I was growing up. I don't remember really thinking, oh, that kid just made a racial remark. I mean, the worst I've been called is a brown donkey. And as a kid, I just went, well, you look like a... I tried to come back. I can't remember what animal I picked, but it was a terrible comeback. Anyway, I didn't think of it as a racial thing. I just thought, hey, why does this guy think I look like a donkey, you know? So I never really placed it until maybe when I was much older, that I started seeing things like, oh, you know, that's a bit racist. I'm not sure whether I lacked the vocabulary for it when I was younger, or whether we are just a little bit more aware.
I just really have to ask you about the famous incident, Dave. What's your thought at that time when he asked you to date within your own race?
It was more like question mark, you know, what in the world is going on? To be fair, I actually thought it wasn't directed to me, you know. But more so, I felt, I wasn't mad. I want to make it out clear, and I think I've done that on Channel News Asia. I was not mad or anything, but it was more of, I was heartbroken for my partner, you know. Because, well, we've been together for, 7-8 years now. So she's still my girlfriend. She's not my wife.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So seeing someone pretty much insult her, you know, in a public space, and you can't do much, you know. I felt it was sort of like my fault, in the sense that it's because she's with me, that's why we both as a couple are going through this together. Yeah, it was just, oh man, just like flashback. It's like a nightmare that I don't want to wake up in. Is, you know, you just feel really heartbroken and you feel so upset. I remember like when we both got home, it was as though like somebody passed away in the family, you know. I mean, it's a bit pantang for me to say, but our thought process was all over the place, you know. And on one hand, I really want to comfort her, and on the other, I also wanted to make sure that incidents like this would not happen, you know. And I think that's why we decided, or like, I should say I decided to, like, you know, bring this up online. But yeah, and then the rest is history, I guess. It's been, a year plus now?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah. And I think that a lot of conversations have happened.
Yeah, and I'm so happy for it, you know. I think because, my brother, I hope you got this, right? At least in Singapore, not many people talk about race or religion. You know, I understand it's a very sensitive topic, and I completely understand. But I feel that, you know, I won't use the word I was bullied. No. That's a bit too childish. But I don't want people of the younger race to sort of go through what we had to go through, you know, because I can understand from like my parents' generation, the people older than me, they probably had it tougher. I sympathize with them, and I want to be the guy who sort of let's break this. What's the right word to use? Let's break this thing, you know. Like, let's not make it it's okay for me to go and call you out on your race. Call me on my behavior, by all means, you know. Call me out on my character, by all means. Don't call me out on something that I have literally no control over, you know. And for example, if like, this lecture, right? So for what he did, it doesn't really, no doubt it affected me and Jacqueline, but it also affected all our families. And like all of a sudden, like there's 50, 60 people, and like the whole family on both sides are, you know, suddenly we're all dragged into this. And it's not a nice thing, you know, but it just like, if you were to insult someone, you gotta know about like the consequences that you're gonna face later. You know, it's not like it's a free mic you just take and then you just go around and blah 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 blah, you know. So yeah, it's a bit sad, to be honest.
Well, I really don't know if I would have had the courage to do what you did, man. I mean, standing up to it, it's it takes a lot. That's why I guess that's why you felt the way you did when you went back, and you still kind of feel it when you think about it. So I can't say I faced that kind of discrimination or criticism before. And when I do face minor ones, I always feel on the one hand, I'm okay, this person probably just either is ignorant or wants to know more about me but doesn't know how to say it. Like, what are you? Where are you from? And sometimes it gets irritating because you always feel that you need to prove you belong here. Like you're improving my citizenship to you. When did my grandparent come here? When did my grandfather come here? And why do I need to do that when we are both Singaporean and we both belong, right? I mean, and even if you're not Singaporean, maybe live here, just get along as people, right? So do I kind of take it in stride, try to explain, or do I kind of just go, she just wants to know more about me, or do I say something, So I'm usually quite undecided in those situations.
But it's very interesting because Dave, your girlfriend, right? She's Singapore Chinese and Thai, right? So half Chinese, half
so her
Thai.
dad is Singaporean Chinese.
Okay.
Her mom's Thai.
But if you guys get married and you have kids, so what is your kids' race then?
Good question. I mean, I wouldn't know actually. I don't know if I'm allowed to put all four in IC.
High five, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I also don't think so. With regards to that, I think to be honest, we haven't really thought of it, and we feel it doesn't really matter because he's our kid, she's our kid, Yeah.
Okay. How about Shane? What does your kid actually?
Does it say Eurasian Chinese?
No, we never went with the double barrel. Okay. So it just says Eurasian. But of course, my wife is also Eurasian, but we are both Eurasian Chinese, if that makes sense. So I think, I have no idea how the math of race works. Are you a quarter? Can you be a sixth? Someone told me I'm 3/5 of a something, and I'm like, how do you get there? And then they calculate from the grandparents and half here, half there, and then it becomes 1/4, and it becomes, I'm like, I don't know what I am then. Because my mom is not only Chinese, she's Peranakan Chinese.
Okay.
So my grandfather on my maternal side is Hokkien, and then my grandmother is Peranakan. So basically, I'm everything and anything.
Yeah, you are.
And just this morning, I was sitting in Starbucks and I was speaking to this gentleman who was in finance, and he was talking to me, and he asked me, because we exchanged name cards, and he asked me, are you Indian? And I said, well, probably Portuguese Indian from Goa some time back. And he's like, okay, so the Portuguese Eurasians. And I'm like, yes. So I don't know. And then on the Peranakan side, I'm pretty sure there's some Malay in my lineage somewhere. And that's fine, I don't know what. I don't really care. I just like to say, I'm mixed race. I'm Eurasian as far as I think culturally. But I'm also Chinese, so I celebrate Chinese New Year. And my mom is quite particular about these things. So, I'm
going to say it live. I'm going to go to your house for Chinese New Year.
Okay.
I'm going to warn you and say I have 2 kids. So, you'll be giving me my...
Done.
Oh, no, wait, you're not married. Oh, you're safe.
Okay, so my question really is about the CMIO model also, right? So does it actually sufficiently represent you, and what do you think about it?
This framework was developed years ago, right? And I think with today, I won't say it's the best, but we sort of need something like that. Because especially like the whole percentage of, people and housing, and, they need that percentage of people from one race to like occupy one HDB block. So I can sort of understand the logic behind it. In terms of execution, I don't want to be one who judges it, So far, personally, I don't think I've ever, it has ever barred me or stopped me from doing anything. So for that reason alone, I just feel, what, it's been going on for years, and just let it be, But to be fair, to be real honest, I feel bad for people who fall into the O. Others than my brother.
You
I'm
are
sorry.
old, right, Shane?
Yes.
Oh, dear.
I'm also old.
So I feel, I was trying to think hard, what could you substitute O with? And it's not the easiest thing to do. So who am I to sort of come up and change? Like, I don't want to be that person, you know, I don't want to be that guy. But yeah, dude, I definitely feel for people who fall into that category, because there's a lot of them that just go, oh yeah, I'm others, you know. Because if you're having a conversation with a non-Singaporean, others just sounds like, what do you mean you are others, you know? It sounds a bit funny, if I may. But yeah, maybe personally, I think maybe something like that could like change a little bit. Yeah.
Shane, what's your personal experience being others?
I think the whole CMIO there's a political dimension, right? And there's a public policy, governance kind of dimension. And like Dave, I think that's something is up for debate, and you know, depending on how we analyze it and how things change over the years. But a personal level, like, okay, one example would be, I remember this, I can't remember which year, but there was a period of 2 years maybe where the Eurasian community was, and in general, was really lobbying for greater recognition within this CMI model. And I remember some forms I used to fill up where there was an E for those 2 periods, or 2 years, which was weird, right? So you have CMIEO. And I was happy, of course, when I got to tick the E. I'm like, yes, I don't have to fill up the O anymore, right? But at the same time, just shortly after that, I think there was a call by a segment of the Eurasian population to kind of bring in Kristang, the Creole Portuguese language, as the mother tongue of Eurasians. But that caused problems because not all Eurasians are of Portuguese descent, right? So in the end, it kind of went away quietly. I think that's also, but it's kind of like reflective of an individual need to be recognized, right? And for the Eurasian community having such a strong presence here many, many years ago, it seems that it's obviously waning and it's disappearing very quickly. So I think that's a kind of an effort to kind of hang on to heritage that might be lost. Personally, I'm okay. I went through a period where I'll be irritated and I would cancel the O and put Eurasian. But other than that, I'm pretty much okay. I don't see it as a big problem. I'm quite comfortable with who I am. You know, there was one year I remember when a student came to interview me about my heritage, and she asked me. She listened to me talk about my family, a whole long story, and then she just finally went, "Yeah, okay, but what makes you Eurasian?" And I couldn't answer that question because, can I sing the Jinkli Nona? No. Can I speak Kristang? No. Do I wear the Portuguese dress? Do I dance the Portuguese dances? No. So what is it? And it boils down to the one thing that Singaporeans have in common and always go back to, which is food.
Okay.
And I happen to be baptized Catholic, I go to church. So those are the commonalities. When my grandfather was around, we used to take trips up to Malacca for the St. Peter's Festival, which was a thing. It's like the pilgrimage of all Eurasians, right? But besides that, I'm not really sure. Like, it's a lot of it, on reflection, seems like family tradition, right? My mom has this book which she's got from, and she's Peranakan, but, you know, I mean, she's got this cookbook which over the years have been slotted in, scribbled on with their own recipes. Everything is in there. These are the things that, you know, you want to pass on to your next generation. I think those are precious. She's got those dishes that are blue and white, you know, very typical. And she's like, one day you will inherit all this. And my wife is like, oh no, where are we going to put this in my house? But, you know, all these are things that you pass down to your children, which I think then that is my Eurasian heritage. But it's difficult to kind of pin down as distinctly Eurasian.
So your mom is Peranakan, but are you Peranakan? Do you follow your father or do you follow your mother's heritage and race and customs?
For me, I think I follow both.
Okay.
You know, because, well, I live in a Sindhi household or like an Indian household, you know. So my mom, she's based in Singapore. So whenever we have any Indian or Hindu traditions, yeah, I follow. And then during like December is when I go back to my mom's side of the family. So that's when I'm like, oh, full blown Filipino, you know. Yeah. So yeah, we celebrate Christmas and all that. So it's a bit, you know, I think you're not the first one who's asked me, you know, do you follow your dad or your mom? I say I follow both, and I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, I would say I'm blessed to be able to experience two cultures. It has helped me and my sister to better understand why people do certain things. Because not all cultures are the same. So in one culture it's okay to do something, in another culture it's not. And like what you said, end of the day it's all food, right? So, I feel like that is one of the good binding factors to sort of bring everything together. So yeah, for me personally, I follow both. I'm cool with that.
Shane?
I mean,
Are you Eurasian or are you Peranakan?
I would never say I'm Peranakan.
Why?
But my mother would say I'm Chinese. I don't know. So growing up, it's always been I'm Eurasian, and my mom says, don't forget that you're Chinese. Because I think she also wanted to kind of, I won't say impose, but reiterate the point that I am the product of two different cultural inheritances, right? So don't forget me, hi, I'm your mom kind of thing. So she would teach me whatever she learned from the Chinese customs. But because she's Peranakan, I think some things are not accurately translated. So I can tell you a story. So every Chinese New Year we give the Hong Pao, right? One of the traditions of my family is if you're giving gift to your elder, you have to kneel down. Now I've told this to many of my Chinese friends and they all go, no, it's not.
Actually, some do.
Okay.
Some do.
So now you say so, but most of them just went, doesn't it only happen at weddings? Then I'm like, no, it happens every Chinese New Year. I kneel down, I give them the oranges.
It's actually very traditional, actually. A lot of people don't practice it anymore.
Yeah. So like these things you learn as you go along the way, but these are the things that I used to do. But yeah, so I would say I'm more Eurasian. But I think also it's because on my IC it says Eurasian. Yeah. And I can't speak Chinese. I don't look Chinese. So to say that I'm Chinese would probably be slightly disingenuous. I would say I have inherited Chinese culture, yes, for sure. But I'm not Chinese in racial terms. Does that make sense?
A part of racial identity is also about how you look like, right? Unfortunately, like if you look more like a certain race, then you probably will belong to that group a bit more. Can I say that?
In a way, because at some point your external features would impact how people view you and then how you kind of respond to that, right? But it's not necessary. I mean, you can always reject it and say, no, actually, I'm Chinese. I'm Chinese through and through. But it depends on what you consider the Chinese or Eurasian cultural markers. So I wouldn't say I'm Chinese because I don't have the ability to speak any Chinese language. That's probably the most important thing. Everything else, I'm okay. Like Eurasians don't have to speak another language. I am effectively monolingual, so I can speak Malay because that's what I studied. But as far as Eurasian languages go, I can't speak it.
How about Dave? You are considered Indian, right? In the IC. And are you?
No, I'm actually, my IC says Sindhi.
Okay, so like specifically Sindhi.
So long story short, Sindhis actually come from Sindh. And where is Sindh at the moment? It's actually in Pakistan.
Oh, okay.
So many years ago, there was this famous war, partition that happened between India and Pakistan. So my forefathers came from that region. I've got friends who are Sindhis as well, but their IC say Indian. I don't know why mine says Sindhi. Maybe it followed my dad, but I've never really saw it as an issue. With regards to, like your skin color and all that, I think it's easier for someone to sort of look at me first glance and just straight away identify me as Indian. Because I am pretty brown and I have a beard, right? So, but I feel you can, like color is not really a thing nowadays.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's super not PC to talk about it, actually. Yeah.
So, and I feel like, I don't know, just color is just something, if you're lucky you're born, I mean, it's I don't know how to even put it in a sentence. It's just, it is what it is, and you can't change that. Yeah.
It's a very uneasy topic to talk about, right? Especially if I would imagine if you don't really look like one side of your parents, right, then as what Dave mentioned just now, like people may not realize that you guys are from part of the same family. And I think just now we also mentioned about you having to justify whether are you Singaporean. Dave, do you have to do that also?
I mean, I served NS. That makes me full blown already.
Okay.
I can speak Singlish. I understand the norms of what Singaporeans like to do. But no, I've never been put in a place where Indians stand one side, Malays stand one side, Chinese stand one side. There's no such thing like that during NS.
I think they assume that if you have to serve NS, you definitely are Singaporean, right? In a way.
Yeah, so that's why the reason why I brought that up is we all are the same. Our religions are different. Our mannerisms might be a bit different, but because we grew up here in Singapore, be it you are part of the CMIO, wherever you guys come from, you guys have something in common. Being Singaporean, having a red passport, being proud of your roots. For example, my parents, both of them were not born in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my dad was actually born elsewhere, but he moved to Singapore when he was a kid. My mom moved to Singapore after she got married. I still don't see myself as any different from you, my dear. I presume your parents are born here. One. Right? But
Yeah.
I don't see myself as any different from you.
Yeah.
We might look different. We might probably eat different things. But being Singaporean it's a very wholesome thing. And because I studied abroad. So when I was overseas, one thing it was really fun or really nice to see is when you're walking down Chinatown, Soho in London, and you hear someone go, hey, Allah, something like that. And then you look around and you feel, there's that burning pride. And my folks, my friends from the other races who are like French and British, they don't understand why this brown boy with long hair is like suddenly so excited. And in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, that's my people. Yeah, I feel that pride.
It's a sense of belonging.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is, like, for example, and at that moment, I'm not the majority color, right? But I was buzzing so hard that those Chinese folks were Singaporean. I was like, in my head, those guys were my blood, like those guys were my family. It's something that I really take pride in. I feel like I served my country, and I belong here,
As I said, for me, it was like, it's minor irritation. I think I brought up this example before, Kaixin, talking about how it's a little bit like Asian water torture, like the drops of water in your head until you get, the drops of water itself is not harmful, it's not painful, but after years of it gets annoying. So I get annoyed, I roll my eyes quite a bit. Okay. When people question whether or not I belong, right? In the sense that, are you really Singaporean? And if I say I'm Singaporean, are you newly converted? Because as if there is a value ranking, right? So I have to be here how many years before I'm really like you? Yeah, which I find offensive. But a roll eye kind of offensive. But I think, yeah, you're right. We're talking about bringing out what you talked about earlier, right? So it reminds me of an article I read by Roger Brubaker. This was years ago when I was in London studying. He talked about ethnicity without groups. So we like to think about race as racial groups, ethnicity as ethnic groups. But he says that actually, if you look at how people use their identity in everyday life, right? It's situational almost, right? Sometimes you play it up, but most times you don't notice it. You don't see each other racially, right? You go about, but the problem is, I think after so many years of trying, always like kind of thinking racially, everything becomes about race. You don't notice the moments, which are plenty, where you don't think about each other racially, right? And so because of that, you always kind of think, oh yeah, Singapore is very racist and such a terrible place to grow up with. When people say that, I think they're not looking at the moments where you don't care, right? When it doesn't matter. I think only race and ethnicity matters in certain conditions where it becomes important. Otherwise, you don't really need to bring it up. Sometimes even overseas, after a while, when I first moved overseas, of course, you're very conscious of yourself, right? Surrounded by non-Asians, I'm the only different person there. But after a while, you don't think about it anymore, and you realize that people don't care. Yeah.
Okay, but do you feel, I think I mentioned also just now about the CMIO thing, but because you don't really fit nicely within CMIO, do you feel like you're being left out actually from government policies?
I mean, the fact that they thought about the O, I think is... they could have just easily gone CMI or C.
CMI sounds bad. That's a joke, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think... I'm thinking about instances where my friends or people I know complain about how these policies have disadvantaged them. And the obvious place is housing, right? Or I'm a minority, it's very difficult to get a flat. 2, it's very difficult to sell. 3, the price of the flat is low. So when I sell, I don't make that much money and so on. That's all true. I mean, I'm not taking that experience away from them. But I also think it's got more to do with class. And I think we can do a lot more helping people who either don't earn enough, can't find jobs, or to just elevate the general income level or things like that, right? Those issues can be dealt with. And I think that's apart from race. Race affects it, but not necessarily, I don't think. But I don't know, that's my personal view. I'm not sure what the surveys say.
But I mean, the government also came out with a new measure also, right? Like if you are minority and you have difficulty selling HDB flats, then you can sell it back to HDB, right? And I think that possibly can help to solve some of the problem with the issue of not being able to sell the flat. Okay, so just now we were talking about double barrels also. So this regulation came out in 2011, right? You can help choose for your kid whether to put which race, and then which race first, hyphen, which race second, and all that. I was just looking through the regulation now, and I just found out that you can change your race twice.
Only twice?
Only twice.
Yeah, so apparently you can change it before 21, I think, and then one more time after that. And it's very interesting. It points to the fact that it's a bit fluid, right? Like what you identify with may change. What do you all think? Will you ever change it, Steve?
Will I ever change it? Yeah, definitely.
You will?
Because I want to honor my mom as well.
Ah, okay. You can actually.
Yeah, I've been in talks to already change it. But it's just more on. I don't take out my IC ever. Right? It's been in my wallet this whole time.
Okay.
I think the last time I took it out was probably 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
I absolutely have no use for it. It's just an identification card that I keep. The reason why I say that is I'm just lazy to go through all the paperwork of actually changing it. If I could do it with a text message or a WhatsApp, like I'm Dave so-and-so, I'm changing, I will get that done, But if I need to go out of the way to go and change my, official state document, it becomes a bit of a hassle, because all my businesses, my bankings, my business bank account, all of it has to link into my IC. So I don't want, just because I changed my IC and then now all the rest of it, I need to go one by one and change it. That's the only thing that's sort of hindering me. If I don't know, because I've honestly not double checked on that. But if there's an easier way, I could be in and out in half an hour. Yeah, definitely I'll get that changed.
I don't know what's the procedure. How do you change it actually? But yeah. What about Shane? Will you change yours?
I don't know. I probably wouldn't change mine. If my child, when they grow up and they want to change it, I think that's fine. I don't know. I never really thought about it. I think I grew up in a time where changing the name was more of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I put the wife's name double-barrel the surnames. What do I do? My mom's time, they changed then. I mean, my mom did. She changed her surname to my dad's family name, right? So sometimes the wife does that. But I seldom see that these days. I don't know. I don't think I would change it. I feel that on one hand, it's also not that. I mean, if doesn't make much of a difference. So change or don't change. At the end, I'll probably still put Eurasian first. I wouldn't put Chinese Eurasian because, like I explained just now, I don't think that's my identity, right? Mm-hmm. So Eurasian Chinese, maybe.
I think you would only change if you identify both. Because I grew up in two cultures, so that'll be the reason why I want to change. I understand both sides of the culture and both sides of their traditions, and hence I would change. I feel, because I have other friends who are mixed race as well, but they grew up in with one culture, because their parents had a bit of like a thing, and then they left. So there was one parental figure who looked after him. No doubt he looks mixed. No doubt he is mixed, but he is more at ease, if I may, with his mom's side of the family. So he would want to change, just to put, he would want to remove his dad side of the, as in his dad's race, and just put his mom's race. And I don't see anything wrong with that. If it makes him feel comfortable, carry on, mate. There's literally nothing stopping you from that.
Yeah. But it reminds me of the debate about dialect also, right? Because I think recently there was this slight hoo-ha for birth certificates. ICA stopped recording it on the IC itself for Chinese dialects. Or I think not just Chinese dialects, like any dialects if there is one in their culture. And people were not happy about, removing this from the identification. So it may matter to some people also, right? What about Shane? What if they force you to put in Hokkien on your identification? You'd be like, what? What is this, right?
Yeah, I'll be a bit weirded out by it, but like I said, I don't see what's the point of them doing that either. So I don't think they would. But if they did, it would just be strange. If you don't identify with it just seems awkward.
Yeah. Right? So moving on to interracial marriage, actually, because I think we have some figures that back in 1998, there was 8.7% of interracial marriage in Singapore. But in recent years, it's went up to around 1 in 5, around 20% in Singapore. So there are going to be a lot more kids with mixed heritage, right? Mixed parentage and all that. It feels like we don't have the language for this, actually. How do we address this issue? There will be a lot of kids who are mixed Angmo, right? And then or mixed Southeast Asian and all that. But how do we classify them? Do you have any ideas?
Well, I don't see it as an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as the CMIO project goes, you just follow your father's race, right? And then you choose a double barrel based on your mother. I mean, I'm not sure whether this causes any personal anguish, generally speaking. Like I said, for me personally, it doesn't matter. But how I identify and how I feel comfortable with myself, I think that's way more important. So I'm very comfortable in who I am. I'm not sure whether, like I said, I think even when growing up just to give you an example, growing up, I think among my cousins on my Eurasian side of the family, I think they all know and they all treated me as if I was the least Eurasian of all of them.
Okay.
Right. But there were certain things, certain markers, which I wouldn't say are typically Eurasian, but in my family, there are all these badges of honor that you needed to do. Go to a mission school, go to an all-boys school, get into fights, play truant, So, you had to have that kind. So because they'll come home and they'll tell me stories. Or today, we fought by the fence. This guy said this to me and I went. And it's all the machismo of a boys' school. Right?
Okay.
And all these were hallmarks of growing up. So whenever we meet, there'll always be these stories. And I'll be the only one who won't be able to tell that story because I went to a government school at my mother's behest. Bracket, her voice still ringing in my head. Don't be like them, see? They're truant. You need to be a good boy. Go to MOE school. It's very good for you. Be a good student. So that's how I ended up being me. But, my point was that, so I was the least Eurasian within the Eurasian cousins, which was funny, But I mean, I'm very comfortable with who I am now. But growing up, it was a bit of a so, who am I? Am I more Chinese? Am I more Eurasian? Where do I kind of lie? Yeah. But over the years, I've kind of solidified that it doesn't bother me anymore.
But interestingly, I was reading some research and all that, and there are some people who will try to play up certain parts of their culture and all that, or they will maybe dismiss some parts of let's say if you are Chinese Malay or Chinese Indian, then do you want to follow more of the majority race, or do you want to play up your minority status? I think Shane, you're in sociology, you have to answer this question.
Ooh, I escaped.
I feel targeted. Like I said, I mean, people play up their race to their advantages, right?
Yeah.
It also depends on where you're born. So I guess in Singapore, one obvious way that this manifests is choosing a minority race family, choosing for their child to take Mandarin.
Okay.
Right? And that happens often enough, right? When my kids, my daughter takes Chinese. My son, I think he'll probably take Malay because
he just cannot.
I don't think he's capable, But we struggle a lot with my daughter. But she has the capacity, so she can do it. And of course, when you choose not to, then someone will say, why didn't you learn Chinese? So I got that as a child. Why didn't you go and learn Chinese? Singapore is full of Chinese people. Chinese is the business language of the future. You got to do trade with China.
But it's more for economics, right?
Yeah.
But is it part of your culture? Is it part of your upbringing?
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
So that's why it, But I mean, you're asking why people would kind of play up and downplay certain aspects, right? It's because of this. I mean, there are also other examples of the famous employment example, I can speak Mandarin, but I'm Indian. The minute I show up at the office, it's no thanks. Chinese culture only.
Okay.
A company, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, these things also kind of one reason why people feel they need to, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have an experience of what you just mentioned.
Okay.
This is a live experience, yeah. So we needed some banking document, or was it some shipping code? So I got my guy to ring up this hotline to ask for codes. He spoke in English, but his accent's really thick because he's not from Singapore. He was given, just, for podcast reasons, let's just say he was quoted $100.
Okay.
Okay. Now I got another person who is a non-Chinese who speaks fluent Mandarin.
Okay.
She rang up the phone and she got it at $40.
Oh dear. Ooh. That's a very big difference.
Mm-hmm. So some might argue, no, it's based on negotiation. Okay. But how can a less than 10-minute phone call or 15-minute phone call give me 60% in savings? I never learned Mandarin. In fact, my parents put me in Hindi. I think it was just easy. Mm-hmm. But now, because I'm in the working world, I do import, export, and I run multiple businesses. I decide to pick it up on my own. Mm-hmm. Now, my Mandarin ain't fluent, but if you were to throw me in China, I would know how to go from point A to point B.
Wow, that's amazing.
And why I feel that is important, because from economic point of view, it is the business language.
Yeah.
As much as we try to go against it, or we try to, we downplay it, it is,
So in a practical sense, right?
Yeah. In fact, I just had a conversation with Jacqueline yesterday and asked her, I think we were just discussing about, say, if we have a kid, what do I want our kid to learn in parallel to English, So I was like, dude, just speak to the kid in Mandarin, Mm-hmm. But you have to understand, I'm thinking, my thought process is more on a capitalist or a
money making, motivation.
I mean, that was the main reason why I learned it.
Okay.
My friends who are Chinese in Singapore, we all speak English to each other. There's no reason for me to learn another language for them. Mm-hmm. I'm learning to sort of benefit my own company. You know, not say I speak to my employees in Mandarin, but more on when I wanna do businesses, it actually open up more doors. Just because I can say, oh yeah, 我知道, and oh yeah, I can say like numbers fluently. And then when we go on a Zoom call, they're like, 这个印度人啊, like, whoa. You know? So sometimes it gets them buzzing really hard. And like my girlfriend, I've seen it a couple of times. And then when they found out like an Indian guy, because he's Indian, and I don't blame them, it's fine, I'm cool with that. They're like, wow, you know, like this guy can speak basic Mandarin. And then, you know, you sort of warm up to them, and they'd be more than happy to sort of help you. So I think, yeah. So my reasons of why I'd want my kids to take up Mandarin is different from culture. I see it more as practical.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there are some kids who are from the minority race, right? And they decided to pick up Chinese for economic reasons. But there will be thoughts about whether are they forgetting their own culture, right? Is it? Yeah. Will there be? Shane?
You're talking about non-Chinese who pick up?
I think there's an issue for maybe like person who's like fully from Malay or Indian ethnic groups. Of course, there's also the other ones who are like mixed Chinese, mixed Malay, or mixed Chinese, mixed Indian, but they will go and learn Chinese for economic reasons. But will they forget the other part of their culture?
To some extent also, we are placing a little bit, we're making it a zero-sum game, which I don't think it is. Firstly, because culture is not just language. Language is very important, but you have a lot of cultural traditions, dress, the way you see things, religion. I mean, these things all tie in together. And so you can be very Indian and speak Mandarin. Whether or not you can still speak your other Indian languages, I think that's secondary. You'll still be able to speak English for sure. And you can still identify as an Indian Singaporean. Why not? I don't think that there's an issue, yeah. Definitely not a zero-sum game in that sense. I have friends who bothered to actually... so they're Chinese and they learn Hawaii. But because of their grandmother, they take the effort to learn Cantonese or Hokkien. Right? And I mean, that was also a concern for the Chinese losing that heritage, right? So, I mean, if you really want to, it doesn't make you any less or more of something. It just makes you a different person, better person, more rounded person, I think.
Yeah.
If I give you one thing to change about being biracial in Singapore, what would you change? Who goes first?
Change one thing of being biracial.
One aspect of life in Singapore in relation to yourself or your family being biracial. What do you want to change? A policy, a way of life, anything. Dave?
Well, I think for me, like my whole thought process on like it doesn't really have to be about biracial, you know. For me, is we are all Singaporeans, right? Whether or not I'm brown, white, black, yellow, pink, green, purple, it doesn't matter, you know. I feel race is just, it's something we can't change. We are born with it, right? But who are you as another person to come up to me and shoot me down based on my skin color? So going back to your question, for me, it's not on changing anything with being biracial, but it's more on changing the thought process that it is okay to just go up to someone and be like, you know, condemning him or her. For me, I think I want to sort of remove that, you know, like if we could make like a new law or like a policy that, okay, you know, if you were to say something racist, and then you just go behind bars, you know, like let's make it strict, you know. It's not it's not really targeting anything, but it's more like just stopping that nasty behavior.
The racial discrimination, right?
Yeah, I don't see why we should not create a policy around that. Yeah. Because end of the day, it helps the nation as a whole, you know. And I completely agree with you. On our day-to-day lives, being whatever race doesn't really bother any of us, you know. But I don't want any more public incidents, if I may.
Shane?
For me, what can it change? It's a tall order, because I feel that you can change legislation, but you can't change biases that exist already. So for just to give an example, so if you're talking about employment, we have now the new rules giving TAFEP more teeth. We've tried to bring up on dialogue, talking about how when you make a job application, you should only fill in things that are important. Like, if race is not a factor in the job you are doing, then, you know, I'm not going undercover as a Chinese person, for example. If I'm joining ISD, then obviously I need to put my race, because I can't be a Eurasian and go undercover as a Chinese person. But if not, then why are we putting those things? You know, and that shouldn't be something that gets you the first cut, right? Oh, not Chinese, put in the bin. But you, at the same time, you can't change things like employers who say, well, we have very Chinese culture here, because they can always hide behind, you're not the best candidate, and chuck you out. Anyway, but those things will take time. But I have hope. I think the future, hopefully, is brighter, because I recently gave a talk in Temasek Secondary School, and I told one of my anecdotes about the lift and my children, and that's why my children are good looking. And I was very surprised. Their response was an overwhelmingly shocked.
Huh?
Nobody laughed. Everyone went, what? You know, and I think it was genuine. Because I can imagine back in my time, people would probably be laughing, because these are the jokes that we told each other, right?
Yes.
And it was very normal back then. So I hope so.
Things are going,
that things
getting
will
better.
Get better. When old fogies like me leave, it would be less racism. I really hope. On the other hand, also, I kind of want the state to take it less seriously, because I think they are very tight about keeping the racial quotas exact, 70%, 77%. And so I think those things can afford to be slightly fluid, you know, and I think society is changing, and the way that the global migration is going, people are coming in, people are going out. There's a lot more vibrancy, and I think Singapore's strength is vibrancy, and that needs to kind of be encouraged. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we hear about the two of you talking about your culture, your ethnicity, your race, and all that. And the common theme is about how fundamentally you are Singaporean, right? So with that, I'd like to thank my guests, Dave and Shane, for their time today. Thank you all for listening in. See you on the next episode of On Diversity. On Diversity is a podcast inspired by the Institute of Policy Studies Managing Diversity's research program. We are available on Omni.fm, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Please follow or subscribe to the On Diversity podcast to get notified when we have a new episode. You can visit our website, ipscommons.sg, for more info.